what challenges are organizations running into as they try to adopt AI inside their engineering teams?
One of the key things that we're seeing is organizations are rolling out AI tools for the software engineers and focusing on adoption. So are people actually using the tools? And what we find is that that's not enough, because if you're just using the tool to answer a question, it's not actually changing how you're working. So the real challenge is to get software engineers to fully adopt the tool and use it in a way that makes them more productive, really using the AI to write code for them instead of them writing code themselves.
So, Matt, you heard him explain some of these huge challenges. You're not just using the tool to use the tool. So how did BCG and AWS come together to partner to help teams at AWS overcome these challenges?
Yeah, well, first of all, I couldn't agree more. It's not just about the adoption, it's meaningful usage. And in our case, that means, are you actually deploying code to production? And is it actually making it to customers in the form of features? So the first thing we did is spend a lot of time upfront. How are we going to measure this? Like, how are we going to measure adoption in the first place? But how are we going to measure that translation from adoption to POC to production to actually that meaningful usage? So we established some top line metrics together. And then from there, we could set some goals for the project. Like, how are we actually going to get more code with AI tools to production using some common measures that everyone kind of understands?
So these common measures that everyone understands, I'd like you to touch on that so that we're very, very clear. But also, what is BCG offering to help clients improve productivity? So first, you can talk about those tools. And then I want to get back to you about what BCG is offering.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's actually not as much about the tools. Like, yes, you need to be experts in your tools, but it's more about the expertise. And so what we found was hugely beneficial after we established what the metrics are, like how are we going to measure meaningful adoption, is embedding people directly into the teams who can credibly speak to using these tools and actually getting to the outcomes that we both wanted. So we spent a lot of time, yes, about measurement, but then really just embedding BCG experts into our teams, earning the trust of our developers so that they can actually then see through these projects and get to more ultimately production code deployed.
So you heard him talk about embedding your experts, but what is BCG doing specifically to help this process?
Yeah, so it's actually quite challenging to get the behavior change to happen. What we found is there are actually three reasons why software developers really resist using the tools effectively. One is they don't know that it can do what it can do. The second is they have habits. We're all human. We do things the way that we do them. And then the third is there's this actual real sense of sort of identity threat. People worry that if the AI tool can do what they do, that it makes them sort of irrelevant to the world. And so there's a lot of sort of fear and resistance. So what we found is you have to get over all three of these things. And so what we do, one is you do some training. So you have to tell them how to use the tools and have to show them how to use the tools effectively. So how to actually explicitly use the tool. But the second is you have to give them coaching. And so we need to have peer engineers, and so we will bring in peer engineers from our team, and then we'll actually, with our clients, help them develop their own coaches that are peer engineers that are experts in using AI. And those peers actually coach the developers and help them develop new habits. How do I work in a new way? But maybe even more importantly, help them realize that when you use these tools effectively, it's not a threat to your identity. It actually makes you much more powerful. And we find that engineers, once they have really adopted a new way of working, they love working this way. They love using these tools. It makes their job is more fun. They don't do toil. They spend a lot more time creating and building.
Right, that's such a key point because everyone seems threatened by AI, but what you're saying is it's not going to threaten you. It's going to enhance you. What about your key goals for next year, Matt? What are the key goals?
Yeah, well, the key goals are really doubling down on what we've learned. Like, year to date, and thanks to the work we've done at BCG, we have a 31% productivity improvement, and we've actually shipped 27% more features this year. And sort of getting back to what you were saying, like, that's empowering for developers. They went from maybe some of them some pockets of resistance to feeling empowered because they're shipping more features, they're shipping more code to production, and we want to double down on that. End of the day, what does a developer want? They want their code in the hands of customers and customers using that, and they're able to do that faster and do more. So we're going to do more. Another thing we're going to do is work together on not just the coding part, but other parts of the software development lifecycle. So, we estimate that about a third of the work is coding. And then there's what happens after you ship the code, like maintenance, and what happens before, all the upfront designs and specs that go into what ultimately becomes, code that you deploy. And so we're going to spend a lot of time on how can we optimize the front half of that, the specs, the design, and the back half, the maintenance and the ops after you deploy the code. So the whole software development lifecycle is optimized and we can move even faster.
Moving even faster. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.